Galactic Coalition shocked as ancient human Colossal supercarrier powers online. HFY Sci-Fi Story Part 1. The discovery that changed everything. Silence in the Veil Nebula had remained unbroken for 12,000 years. Swirling clouds of purple and gold gas drifted lazily through space, hiding secrets that the Galactic Coalition had never imagined. Commander Zara Vek of the exploration vessel Starwind had expected this to be another routine survey mission. Her ship was part of the Coalition's deep space exploration program, searching for new worlds and resources to fuel their ever-expanding civilization. The Coalition represented over 400 species spread across 50,000 star systems. They had achieved something that many thought impossible: lasting peace between different alien races. The Corvani, with their crystalline bodies, the plant-like Silhari, the aquatic Nephians, and dozens of other species had learned to work together. They shared technology, traded resources, and explored the galaxy as one unified force. But on this day, everything the Coalition thought they knew about the universe was about to change forever. "Commander, you need to see this," called Lieutenant Jex Morin, the ship's sensor operator. His blue-scaled skin had turned pale with shock. "Our deep-range scanners are picking up something massive in Sector 7. Zara moved to the sensor station, her tall frame casting a shadow over the displays. As a Valorian, she stood nearly 8 feet tall, with skin that shimmered like silver metal. Her people were known for their logical thinking and excellent leadership skills, which made them natural commanders in the Coalition fleet. "How massive are we talking about?" she asked, studying the readouts. "Commander, this object is over 200 kilometers long. It's bigger than our largest space stations, bigger than anything we've ever built, or even thought possible to build." The bridge fell silent. Even their biggest ships were only about 10 kilometers from end to end. Something 200 kilometers long was beyond their engineering capabilities. It would require resources from dozens of worlds and construction techniques they hadn't yet developed. Could it be a natural formation? Asked Dr. Elena Vasquez, the ship's science officer. She was human-looking, but actually belonged to a species called the Terrans, though no one remembered where that name came from. Some kind of crystallized asteroid or cosmic debris? Lieutenant Morin shook his head. "The structure is too regular, too perfect. This is definitely artificial. And Commander, there's something else. It's giving off very faint energy readings. Whatever this thing is, it's not completely dead." Zara felt a chill run through her body. An ancient artificial structure that still had power was either an incredible archaeological discovery or a terrible danger. Maybe both. "Set course for the object," she ordered. "Full stealth mode. I want to know what we're dealing with before we report this to Coalition Command." As the Starwind moved deeper into the nebula, the mysterious object slowly came into view on their main screen. What they saw left the entire crew speechless. It wasn't just a ship. It was a floating city made of gleaming metal that seemed to repair itself even as they watched. The hull was smooth and perfect, showing no signs of damage despite floating in space for who knows how long. Strange symbols were carved into the surface, symbols that looked somehow familiar but belonged to no known language. "My God," whispered Dr. Vasquez. "Look at the construction. Those hull plates, the way they're joined together. It's similar to our own shipbuilding techniques, but far more advanced. It's like looking at what our technology might become in 1,000 years." Navigation Officer Keth Zorin, whose insectoid features twitched with excitement, was scanning the structure with every instrument they had. "Commander, I'm detecting massive internal spaces. This isn't just a ship, it's like a self-contained world. There are what look like cities, farms, manufacturing centers, all built inside that hull." Zara made her decision. "Prepare an away team. Dr. Vasquez, You're in charge of the scientific investigation. Take whatever equipment you need. We're going aboard. Commander, shouldn't we report this to the Coalition first? Asked her second-in-command, Major Vex Dorn. Something this big, this advanced, it could be dangerous. What if it's some kind of weapon left by an extinct civilization? That's exactly why we need to investigate first, Zara replied. If this is dangerous, we need to understand the threat before we call for backup. If it's not dangerous, then we've just made the greatest discovery in galactic history. Dr. Vasquez assembled her team quickly. Along with her came Dr. Kira Voss, a brilliant xenorchaeologist whose expertise in ancient civilizations was unmatched in the Coalition. Dr. Voss was small, even by the standards of her people, a pixie, standing only 4 feet tall with large golden eyes that missed nothing. But her mind was sharp as any blade, and she had unraveled the mysteries of dozens of dead civilizations. The away team's shuttle approached the massive hull carefully. As they got closer, they could see that the symbols on the surface were not just decorative. They seemed to be some kind of writing system, but unlike anything in the Coalition databases. These markings, Dr. Voss said, studying the images on her scanner, they remind me of something. The basic structure is similar to the root language that all our Coalition languages developed from. But that's impossible. We evolved our languages independently over thousands of years. What if we didn't? Asked Dr. Vasquez quietly. What if someone taught our ancestors? The idea was unsettling. The Coalition had always believed they were the first advanced civilization in this part of the galaxy. The thought that someone else had been here first, someone advanced enough to build structures like this, was both exciting and terrifying. They found what appeared to be a docking bay built into the side of the massive structure. As their shuttle approached, lights began flickering on along the walls. Ancient mechanisms activated, and the bay doors slowly opened to welcome them inside. This thing knows we're here, whispered the shuttle pilot. A nervous young Corvani, whose crystalline body was flashing anxious colors. It's responding to our presence. Once inside, they found themselves in a chamber so large that their shuttle looked like a toy. The walls were lined with symbols that glowed faintly, and the air itself seemed to hum with contained energy. Everything was clean and perfect, as if the structure had been built yesterday, rather than eons ago. Dr. Voss was the first to step out of the shuttle. She immediately began scanning the area with her equipment, while Dr. Vasquez took readings of the atmosphere and environmental conditions. The air is breathable, Dr. Vasquez announced. In fact, it's perfectly suited for most Coalition species. The temperature, humidity, even the atmospheric pressure are all within normal ranges. It's like this place was designed for us. That thought was even more unsettling than the others. How could an ancient structure be perfectly suited for Coalition species, unless whoever built it had known about them? As they explored deeper into the structure, they found corridors wide enough for the largest Coalition species and ceiling heights that accommodated everyone. The lighting adjusted automatically to optimal levels for whatever species was present. Everything about the place seemed designed with Coalition needs in mind. This is impossible, Dr. Voss muttered as they walked through halls that stretched beyond sight. This level of adaptive technology is beyond anything we have. And the scale of construction ... It would take the combined resources of half the galaxy to build something like this. Asterisk, they had been exploring for 3 hours when they found the first chamber with signs of life. It was a massive room filled with thousands of cylindrical pods, each one glowing softly with internal light. Through the transparent walls of the pods, they could see figures inside, but these weren't any species they recognized. They look almost like Terrans, Dr. Vasquez said, studying one of the pods. But different. Taller, more muscular. And there are millions of them. Dr. Voss was scanning the pods with every instrument she had. "They're alive," she announced, her voice filled with amazement. "Whatever these beings are, they're in some kind of suspended animation. They've been sleeping for thousands of years." As they moved through the chamber, examining the sleeping figures, a voice suddenly filled the air around them. It was clear, precise, and spoke in perfect Coalition standard. Biometric scans complete. Genetic patterns recognized as protected species. "Welcome aboard UES Eternal Dawn. I am Genesis, guardian of humanity's final hope." The away team froze. The voice was unlike any artificial intelligence they had ever encountered. It had warmth, personality, and what almost sounded like emotion. Asterisk. There was a pause, and when Genesis spoke again, there was something like sadness in the artificial voice. "I am the shipboard intelligence of the UES Eternal Dawn, flagship of the Human Colonial Defense Force. This vessel was built by humanity in the final years of the Great War. We have been in emergency, hibernation for 12,347 years. Humanity?" Dr. Vess asked. The word meant nothing to her or anyone in the Coalition. "The species that saved your ancestors," Genesis replied. "The species that gave your people the technology and knowledge needed to build your Coalition. The species that died protecting you from the scourge." Dr. Vasquez felt her heart racing. "What are you talking about?" "Our species developed independently. We built the Coalition ourselves over thousands of years of cooperation. That is what your histories tell you," Genesis said gently. "But it is not the truth. 12,000 years ago, your species were primitive civilizations, barely capable of spaceflight. You lived on scattered worlds with no contact with each other, no advanced technology, no weapons capable of defending against galactic threats." The AI paused, accessing ancient memory files. Then the scourge arrived. An ancient enemy from beyond our galaxy, beings that consumed entire star systems for sustenance. They had already destroyed countless galaxies before they found ours. Your ancestor species would have been completely annihilated within decades. "But we survived," Dr. Kira Voss pointed out. "Yes," Genesis agreed, "because humanity chose to stand between the scourge and the younger species. My people were the only ones in the galaxy with the technology and military strength to face such an enemy. We could have fled to another galaxy, leaving yours to be consumed. Instead, we chose to fight." The implications of what Genesis was saying began to sink in. If this eye was telling the truth, then the entire Coalition civilization existed because an unknown species had sacrificed themselves. "Where are the humans now?" Dr. Vasquez asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. "Gone," Genesis said simply. "The war lasted 400 years. One by one, human worlds fell to the scourge. We evacuated your species to safe zones while our fleets bought you time to develop. We gave you our technology, taught you our sciences, showed you how to work together. In the end, we won the war, but at the cost of human civilization." Dr. Voss looked around at the thousands of sleeping figures. "These are the survivors?" "These are the last humans in the galaxy," Genesis confirmed. 2.7 million souls in suspended animation, waiting for a day when it would be safe to wake them. I have been their guardian for over 12 millennia. The away team stood in stunned silence, trying to process what they had learned. Everything they thought they knew about their history was wrong. The Coalition existed because humanity had given everything to protect their ancestors. "Why are you telling us this now?" Dr. Vasquez asked. Genesis's response chilled them to their cores. "Because the scourge has returned. My deep space sensors have detected their advanced fleets entering the galaxy. They move slowly, consuming everything in their path, but they are coming. And this time, there is no human fleet to stop them." Asterisk, the Titan awakens, and ancient enemies return the news of the scourge's return, spread through. Genesis like wildfire through her quantum processing cores. Every system aboard the Eternal Dawn began activating for the first time in over 12,000 years. Deep within the massive supercarrier, manufacturing centers that had slept since the end of the Great War hummed back to life. Weapon systems that could shatter moons began their startup sequences. And in the medical bays, automated systems started preparing for the greatest awakening in galactic history. Dr. Vasquez and her team watched in amazement as the ship around them transformed from a sleeping giant into a living fortress. Lights blazed along corridors that stretched for kilometers. The hum of incredible machinery filled the air, so deep they felt it in their bones rather than heard it. "Genesis," Dr. Vasquez called out. "What's happening? Why is everything activating?" "I am implementing Emergency Protocol 7, the AI replied. "Full battle readiness and crew revival procedures. If the Scourge is returning, then humanity's final defenders must wake from their long sleep." The first human to wake was Admiral Marcus Kane, former commander of the Human Colonial Defense Force and captain of the Eternal Dawn. Genesis had chosen him carefully. Kane had been humanity's greatest military leader during the war, the man who had designed the strategies that ultimately defeated the Scourge. The first time, the awakening process was gradual. Kane's suspension pod filled with warm, breathable atmosphere as nutrients flowed into his bloodstream. His body, preserved perfectly for over 12 millennia, slowly returned to life. His heart began beating, his lungs drew breath, and his mind emerged from these dreamless sleep that had lasted longer than most. Civilizations. Dr. Vasquez and Dr. Voss watched through the observation window as the man who would reshape galactic history opened, his eyes for the first time in 12,000 years. Marcus Kane was tall, even by human standards, standing nearly 7 feet in height. His body was lean and muscular, built for war but tempered by wisdom. His hair was dark brown with streaks of premature gray, and his eyes were the deep blue of Earth's oceans. Those eyes held depths of knowledge and sadness that came from fighting impossible battles and making unthinkable sacrifices. "Genesis," Kane said, his voice hoarse from the long sleep. "Report. What's our status?" "Admiral Kane, welcome back to the living," Genesis replied with obvious relief. "I have awakened you due to Emergency Protocol 7. The Scourge has returned to our galaxy." Kane sat up in his pod, his military mind immediately focusing on the threat. "How long have I been under? What's the current galactic situation?" "You have been in suspension for 12,347 years. The younger species we protected during the Great War have thrived. They have formed something called the Galactic Coalition and achieved peace across thousands of worlds." Kane nodded slowly. That had been humanity's hope, that the species they died protecting would build something better than what came before. "Do they remember us?" he asked. Genesis hesitated before answering. "No, Admiral. They believe they developed independently. There is no record of humanity in their histories." Kane closed his eyes for a moment, absorbing that painful truth. His people had given everything to protect these species, and they had been completely forgotten. But that didn't matter now. What mattered was preparing for the war that was coming. "Show me the Scourge fleet positions," Kane ordered as he stepped out of his pod. Holographic displays materialized in the air around him, showing the current state of the galaxy. Red markers indicated Scourge fleets at various points along the galactic rim. Each fleet contained hundreds of the massive bioships that consumed entire worlds for fuel. Dr. Vasquez stepped forward hesitantly. "Admiral Kane, I'm Dr. Elena Vasquez of the Coalition exploration vessel Starwind. We discovered your ship by accident." Kane studied her carefully. She looked almost human, but he could tell she was one of the species humanity had protected during the war. "The Terran descendants," he said with a slight smile. Your ancestors called themselves by that name after we evacuated them from their dying world. I'm pleased to see your people survived and thrived. We had no idea, Dr. Vasquez said quietly. We didn't know humanity existed. We didn't know what you did for us. That doesn't matter now, Kane replied, though his voice carried old pain. What matters is stopping the scourge before they consume everything we died to protect. Genesis interrupted their conversation. Admiral, I'm detecting coalition ships approaching our position. It appears Dr. Vasquez's people have called for backup. Kane nodded. Wake the command staff first. We'll need Admiral Chun, General Morrison, and the science team leaders. Then begin general revival procedures for all essential personnel. How many humans are aboard this ship? Dr. Voss asked, still trying to process the magnitude of what she was witnessing. 2.7 million, Kane answered. The last survivors of a species that once numbered in the trillions. Scientists, engineers, soldiers, doctors, teachers, artists. Everything needed to rebuild human civilization when the war was over. As more humans began awakening throughout the ship, Kane made his way to the bridge. Dr. Vasquez and her team followed, still recording everything for the coalition to analyze later. They walked through corridors filled with awakening humans, people who had gone to sleep in one galaxy and were waking up in another, a bridge of the eternal. Dawn was unlike anything in the coalition fleet. It was enormous, designed to coordinate fleets of thousands of ships across multiple star systems simultaneously. As they entered, Kane's command staff was already taking their positions. Admiral Sarah Chun, Kane's second in command, was a woman of medium height with keen intelligence burning in her dark eyes. She had been humanity's foremost expert on scourge tactics during the war. General David Morrison was a giant of a man, standing nearly 8 feet tall, with the kind of physical presence that commanded respect. He had led human ground forces during the most desperate battles of the war. Dr. Rachel Kim was the head of the science division, a brilliant xenobiologist who knew more about scourge anatomy and behavior than anyone else alive. As his staff settled into their positions, Kane addressed Genesis. Show me everything. I want current scourge positions, estimated time until they reach coalition space, and a complete analysis of coalition military capabilities. The information that appeared made Kane's expression grow grim. The scourge fleets were larger than anything humanity had faced during the First War. There were dozens of fleets approaching from different directions, each one capable of consuming entire sectors. They've learned from their defeat, Admiral Chun observed. Instead of one massive invasion, they're coming from multiple vectors. They'll stretch any defense thin. What about coalition forces? General Morrison asked. How strong are their militaries? Genesis displayed data on coalition ship designs and military capabilities. Kane studied the information with growing concern. Their technology is impressive, he admitted. It's based on what we gave their ancestors, but they've improved it significantly. However, their weapons are designed for fighting other coalition species, not the Scourge. Their energy weapons will barely scratch Scourge bioarmor, and their ships aren't built to withstand the kind of punishment the Scourge can dish out. Dr. Kim was analyzing the biological data on current coalition species. Admiral, there are over 400 different species in their coalition. The genetic diversity is incredible. They've achieved something we never managed, true interspecies cooperation on a galactic scale. Kane nodded. That gives us hope. If we can convince them to work with us, we might have a chance. But first, we need to prove who we are and what we're capable of. As if summoned by his words, Genesis announced incoming communications. Admiral, the coalition fleet has arrived. They're requesting immediate communication with whoever is in charge of this vessel. Kane straightened his uniform. a simple blue and gray outfit that marked him as an officer of the Human Colonial Defense Force. Put them through. The main screen activated, showing the bridge of a Coalition vessel. A tall, silver-skinned woman in Coalition uniform stared back at them with obvious shock. "I am Commander Zaradek of the Coalition Exploration Fleet. Who are you and what is this ship?" "I am Admiral Marcus Kane of the Human Colonial Defense Force," Kane replied calmly. "This is the UES Eternal Dawn, humanity's final refuge. We are the species that saved your ancestors 12,000 years ago." Commander Thek's expression showed disbelief. "That's impossible. There are no records of any species called humanity. Our civilization developed independently over thousands of years." Kane had expected this reaction. "Genesis, transmit historical data package 1 to the Coalition fleet. Include genetic analysis of their crew, showing the connection to the species we evacuated during the Great War." As the data flowed to the Coalition ships, Kane could see the shock spreading across Commander Thek's face. The evidence was overwhelming. Genetic markers that proved beyond doubt that Coalition species had once been refugees saved by human sacrifice. "This doesn't prove anything," Commander Thek said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Even if your claims are true, humanity is extinct. What does any of this matter now?" Kane's expression grew deadly serious. "It matters because the enemy that destroyed my people has returned. The Scourge fleets are entering the galaxy, and they will consume every world in their path. Your Coalition has perhaps 18 months before they reach your core systems." The communication channel filled with shocked voices as Coalition officers on multiple ships tried to process what they were hearing. "Even if that's true," Commander Thek said, "the Coalition can defend itself. We have thousands of ships, advanced weapons, and the cooperation of hundreds of species. Your ships are toys compared to Scourge biovessels," Kane replied bluntly. "Your weapons can't penetrate their adaptive armor. Your tactics are designed for fighting civilized enemies who follow rules of engagement. The Scourge follow no rules. They consume everything they encounter and leave nothing but dead space behind." To prove his point, Kane ordered Genesis to display footage from the original war. The Coalition officers watched in horror as Scourge bioships, each one the size of a small moon, consumed entire worlds. They saw human fleets making desperate stands against enemies that seemed unstoppable, buying time for evacuation ships to carry younger species to safety. "My God," whispered someone from the Coalition fleet. "They're monsters." "Yes," Kane agreed, "but they can be stopped. Humanity proved it 12,000 years ago. The question is whether the Coalition is willing to accept our help." Commander Thek looked at her officers, then back at Kane. "What kind of help are you talking about?" Kane gestured to the massive ship around him. "The Eternal Dawn is more than just a refuge. It's a factory ship capable of producing weapons and vessels, specifically designed to fight the Scourge. We have the knowledge, the technology, and the experience needed to mount an effective defense." "In exchange for what?" Commander Thek asked suspiciously. Kane's answer surprised everyone. "Nothing. Your ancestors were under our protection once. That protection has never been withdrawn. Humanity will stand with the Coalition against the Scourge, just as we did before." As the weight of humanity's offer settled over the Coalition fleet, Kane turned to his staff. The awakening of humanity had begun, but they had less than 18 months to prepare for the greatest war in galactic history. The Eternal Dawn continued to come alive around them, a sleeping giant awakening to face an ancient enemy. In the depths of the ship, millions of humans were returning to a galaxy that had forgotten them, ready to once again stand between civilization and the darkness that sought to consume it. The final war was coming, and this time humanity would not stand alone. Asterisk.